I'm Mike Klan from KEYT News Channel 3, and you are watching The Good Life with Dean Wilson.
Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you joined us today. GoodLifeTelevision.org is where you can go for all the interviews. We've had so many great people over the last year, so many inspiring stories, young people, entrepreneurs, public servants, law enforcement. We've kind of had the gamut. It's been a lot of fun. And those interviews are all there. There's also power clips where you can kind of see some of the great parts of those interviews. We've kind of divided them up into clips. So we hope you'll join us at GoodLifeTelevision.org. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about my guest. Mike Klan is with me. Mike, well,
hey, yeah, thanks for having me. What a treat. I'm usually the one asking the questions.
Yeah, I figured that.
I don't get interviewed too often. So.
Yeah, well, just, if you're grading me as we go, just be gentle. I'm still in my rookie season.
You're off to a good start.
Yeah, thank you. Mike has been a long time he's the sports guy in our community with KUIT, also the sports director at KCOY and Fox 11. Mike's been in kind of on the TV set in this town for a long time, 25 years?
25 years full time, and even a couple years before that part time, and some free labor too with internships. So,
really?
Yeah. I knew early that's what I wanted to do. So
you don't look old enough to have 25 years in.
Right out of college.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Was this your dream?
It was. I mean, obviously, I think if I had one dream, it would be to actually play professional sports.
Join the club.
I think a lot of people, right? But I wasn't very good, so I always knew I wanted to be around sports. And I went to UCSB and went right to KCSB, the radio station there, and did Sports Spot, did sports updates there. I actually was announcer for some of the teams, volleyball, basketball a little bit, some baseball. They let you do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
But what was incredible is I think it was 1988 as a sophomore, I got to go to Fort Wayne, Indiana to call the NCAA volleyball championships.
Oh, did
UCSB
you really?
was taking on USC, and I thought it was like the best thing in the world. I'm a sophomore in college, and I'm traveling to to cover the NCAA championships in volleyball.
Wow.
So KCSB actually is pretty legit. I mean, they'll send, not all the time, but they'll send their broadcasters to Hawaii to cover a Big West match. And
really?
Yeah, so it's pretty great. I was pretty fortunate to work there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And before I go ask you more, you've covered some of the biggest events in the country: the Super Bowls, World Series, National Championship. You've won Southern California Golden Mike Awards, Associated Press Honors, Emmy Awards. So you've had a lot of success doing this. How has your business changed in 25 years?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, honestly, I think it'll change it for the internet has changed, where people don't have to just be at their house in front of a TV at 6 o'clock. I mean, we always are on social media posting our stories. I think more people watch my stories now on Facebook and Twitter than they do 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I'm not certain of that, but I have a good feeling that if I don't post those stories, I may not get a whole lot of feedback. But when I post those stories, it's like I'll see somebody that's like, oh yeah, I saw your story, on Facebook.
I watch them. That's how I watch them.
Yeah, exactly, because you don't have to be tied down to the 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock news. And still, a lot of people still, prefer to watch the news that way. But with young people, I can't see them watching the news at 6 and 11 o'clock. It's just not conditioned like that way.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like instead of people going to their TV set at a certain time to watch, you're pushing to them.
Right.
And then that's at their convenience.
Exactly.
On their phone.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it's great, too, because you get more feedback that way, too.
Yeah.
Because if you're just talking into, the cameras and then that's it, and you don't know who likes your story, who doesn't like it, what comments they make, and then on Facebook or something they can make comments or like or something. Yeah, it's kind of nice that way.
Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Ohio, but raised mostly outside of Philadelphia. So all my favorite sports teams are all Philadelphia teams.
Really?
Yes.
Still.
So, when you're growing up,
Right.
that's where you form your allegiance. So
Right.
I love the Phillies, the Eagles, the Sixers. But that being said, I cover all the LA teams. So I actually have grown to really like
Have you?
those teams. Yes. There's not really a big rivalry. There used
Right.
to be in the 80s with the
Right.
Sixers and Lakers.
Right.
There was a
Right.
big rivalry, but they're not like Phillies, Dodgers, not much
Right.
rivalry there, the Eagles, Rams and stuff. So I
Right.
enjoy the LA teams. I like the LA teams more than the Bay Area teams because I cover and I know more about the LA teams.
Yeah.
But my love is Philadelphia. Before you even asked, my best sports moment ever was I was at the Super Bowl to watch the Eagles win their only
you
Super
were?
Bowl a few years ago, upset the Patriots. And
Wow.
that is an amazing sports experience for me at US Bank Stadium
Wow.
to watch the Eagles upset Tom
Yeah, that
Brady
was a
and the
big one.
Patriots. So
Right.
I went there, and to enjoy the game, kind of expecting them to lose, and to have Nick Foles, the backup quarterback, get the
Unbelievable.
MVP, and what a
Yeah.
great guy he is.
Right.
And
Right.
to pull that off, that was
That
amazing. So
Amazing. What do you? Well, I was thinking about sports this morning, thinking about having you on, and I was thinking about the value of sports in a community. I mean, you've had this unbelievable show, this Friday night focus on football, and for 25 years. I mean,
yeah,
you've done it
and
20 plus years.
I didn't even start it. We've enhanced it, but that
Yeah.
was like late '80s. They started 10-minute show, and then
Yeah.
it grew and grew.
I was just thinking about that. I mean, high school football as an example is something that really kind of brings a community together.
It sure does.
Talk about kind of sports, young people, the kind of the value of sports in a community.
I just think it's just so positive. People can rally behind it. I mean, even in the school year, on a normal school year, it really sets the tone for the school year. I mean,
Right.
if you have a good football team, I mean,
Yeah.
you see that spirit out there.
Yeah.
I see it
Right.
every Friday night. The band getting out
Right.
there, the
Right.
cheerleaders, the student body, homecoming. It
Yeah.
really does. And even if you're not winning, it just brings people together.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
think that maybe it's because it's the first sport of the year, but it's just like, some sports lend themselves to more eyeballs.
Right,
you
right,
don't see
right.
big crowds of cross country, even though it's a
Right.
great sport.
Right.
It's just football. It's just a gathering place.
Right.
And of course, sports just so positive. How many lessons it teaches you,
Right.
how you get through adversity, how you work as a team. Football as an example. I don't care if you have the star player. It's not going to, unless you have, 10 or 15, 20 more good players,
Yeah.
you're not going to win.
Right.
So I think
Right.
it's just great messages.
Great lessons.
Yeah, and and the thing I like about covering high school sports is it gives kids so much confidence when I go out there or the news press goes out there or Newshawk and does a story. I mean, the confidence it gives kids that they are actually shown in a positive light.
Right.
It's amazing. And I don't even see it all the time. Sometimes I'll do a story and then the mom would call my wife and say, "Oh, he was beaming for a week because
I love
he showed a couple goals from water polo."
Right.
And that just makes me feel so good.
Yes, yeah.
Because, there's so much negativity.
Right.
These kids get on social media.
Right.
We talked about some of the benefits of social media, but there's so many
Oh,
people
no,
just,
yeah.
I think it's more negative, right,
Yes,
than positive.
yes.
And they get such negative feedback some way. And then to hear that they're getting that positive
Right.
vibe from just a quick little highlight.
Right.
It's just,
It's a big deal to be on TV.
no, it is.
So
right?
I'll tell
Yeah.
the story. So you put at the beginning of the quarantine, my boys started doing trick shots in the front. Of
Right,
the
I
house,
remember, yeah.
like hours, days.
They were pretty impressive, I have to
And
say.
you put them on.
Yeah, no.
And you should have seen their face when they saw themselves on TV.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
so,
I mean,
yeah,
to
it's a good
being on
example.
TV
It's a big
is
deal.
a big deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got to say, this community is so fortunate, not just KYT, but the news press and the news, their coverage of local
Yeah.
high school sports and even youth sports. I mean, you go in LA, you're not
Right.
getting that.
You
I
get
mean, the
lost.
LA
Right.
stations are only going pro and some college.
Yeah.
Even UCSB and Westmont gets way more coverage than they would a Cal State
Right.
Fullerton or at
Right.
Irvine, because
Right.
there's just no outlet there for that.
Right, right.
And so this, and the roundtable knows that, and the coaches know that, and they're really appreciative
Yeah.
of that fact.
that's
I mean,
true.
it really builds high self-esteem among our young athletes.
Yeah, in sports, I mean, and you mentioned kind of the lessons sports can teach. I had a conversation with my 14-year-old son the other day. So we were talking about different things, and it came up. So 2017, we're Dodger fans. My boys were devastated by the loss to the Astros.
Yep.
And then it came out that, they're cheating.
Right.
Banging on the trash can.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we were talking about something else totally outside of sports, and he came back to that in the conversation. He said, but Dad, like we learned, everything eventually comes out.
So true.
And I thought, that was a painful thing.
Right.
But I mean, what a great lesson.
Right.
You lose. Sometimes you lose fair and square, and other times you lose, and it's not right, but everything does eventually come out.
I know.
I thought, what a great lesson.
I'm always surprised at people who do try to hide stuff,
Yeah.
and organizations and teams. It
Right.
always
It always
comes
comes out. Right.
It does.
Yeah.
It's just, you just can't keep it silent, and it's
Yeah.
just, if you're up front, then you have nothing to hide.
Right.
And
that's
no shame.
Great
either.
lesson for life.
It is.
I mean,
it really is.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, as a journalist, I appreciate that too. Because even though sports, I cover mostly positive stories. When there is a negative story, I appreciate so much when the coach will talk about it, or where the athletic director will meet it head on instead of just like refusing, no comment, all this, because it always comes out.
Right.
And it's usually worse than if you meet it head on.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
a
we
good
can
point.
all take that. Because in life, some things are not going to go your way. You're going to make a mistake here and there.
Yeah.
Just own up to it.
Own it. Get it out.
Get it out.
Here
and
it is.
move on.
Yeah, that's good. We're solving a lot of problems here. I feel like. Little less chickens. Somebody who wanted to go into sportscasting. I had a dream of going into sportscasting when I was at Westmont College. We talked about this off air, but I did have that dream for a minute.
Right.
What's the path? You seem like you made this look pretty easy. You came right out of UCSB, but a normal kind of situation. If somebody wanted to go into broadcasting these days, what is the path?
There isn't. It's hard to define a path. But for me, and I always suggest young people take an internship, because school, will teach you about it, maybe how to do some of the camera work, or even get in front of it. But until you get into a newsroom or a newspaper, or even at your school, you got to see if you like it, right? I mean, any job. I mean, I had friends went through law school, right? Became a lawyer, and they hated it, right? And then it's just like, then they've got to pivot, which is fine. Most people do change careers.
Yeah.
But the one thing you don't want to do, for me at least, is just try to do something that you're not even going to like, because you're going to spend, no matter what profession, you're going to spend so many hours at it.
Yeah.
And there's no. Let me tell you a secret. In broadcasting and probably a lot of jobs, you're not working just 40 hours, right? I mean, you're working, 50, 60, 70 hours some weeks, right? Not all the weeks, but some weeks. And if you don't like it, that's a big chunk of your week. And, who wants to be miserable at their job?
Right.
So take an internship, and first to see if you like it.
Yeah.
And one thing I will encourage people to do too is be well-rounded, because being well-rounded makes you more interesting, better writer. I mean, if you can write, you can succeed in journalism. But you write through the experiences you have in life.
Right.
So travel and read and do stuff maybe even out of your comfort area, because the experiences will help you in any job.
That all informs you.
It does. It
Yeah.
really does.
I got to spend a couple hours with Vin Scully one time,
Oh,
and what you just
you're
said,
lucky.
I am, and what you just said is what he said. When I was asking him for advice on sportscast, I'm 17 years old.
Right.
He said, read.
Yep, exactly. And
He
I
said-
had this same news director told me that years ago, and he could care less about sports, right? He didn't follow it. He couldn't tell you, the Rams from the Dodgers, but he knew I liked it. And he just said, the more well-rounded you are, the better you will be.
Right.
And
Isn't
it's
that
true.
interesting?
It
Yeah.
is. In
That's
journalism and in life, I think, too.
Right. That's good. So good. We need to focus a little bit, at least, on your wife, Delina.
Oh,
College friend of mine. Delina is like the kind of person that when she sees you, and you see her, you feel like she's always so excited to see you.
She is. She makes you feel better about yourself.
Isn't that
yeah, that's
it's
why
really
I fell
true.
in love with her.
How did you meet her?
I met her at the station. She used
you did?
She was a producer. Yeah, she was a writer
Really?
and a producer when she was at Westmont. And so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I originally met her. She was a writer and a producer, and then we became friends. I mean, she was, she's 9 years younger than me. And so she went off to Club Med and worked and did all the, talk about well-rounded. She's good at everything she does, and she's done a lot of different stuff. And so, but when she came back to town from working at Club Med in Florida, then we started dating. But I got to know her originally at the TV station.
When she was in college.
Yeah, when she was in college. And the thing great about Delina is what people say is she's everyone's biggest cheerleader.
Right.
She just, whatever you like and enjoy, she is there.
She's all
to
about
support.
it.
Yeah, I've kind of encouraged her to become a life coach. So I think I should be, and she's had some interest in that too. But right now she's a wedding planner. She's an event planner. She was a great salesperson at Yardy Systems out in
remember
Goleta.
that. Yeah.
So she's done a lot of stuff. She was an award-winning producer. So she's good at everything. And she's probably the reason why I'm still in Santa Barbara, because, I had, kind of my eye on some different places I was going to work. But she was born and raised here, and it just made sense that we would stay here. And so, and which I have no complaints either, because I love my job here too. But, you kind of always have, like in TV, you're kind of encouraged sometimes to even go to a bigger market, cover bigger stuff or anything. But I can't complain. And you asked me one thing about how TV's changed. One thing that's been great is the technology that changed. To segue, that's why I'm also here, because with the invention or the cell phone technology has made it where we can go live anywhere in the world. So we get to cover bigger events, Super Bowls and World Series, and that's appealing. So there's really no reason for me to go to these bigger places, because that, working in Santa Barbara, I can still cover these big events and also still have the best part of, covering the local high school and college and stuff too. So anyway, Delina's great.
I may need to tag along with you at a Super Bowl someday.
Oh yeah,
I can carry the bag.
You can carry, with all this kind of a setup, I think you're great. You might be asking the questions. I might be carrying your bag.
That'd be fun. Who's your favorite broadcaster of all time?
My favorite broadcaster of all, that's a great question. I love the Chick Hearn and Vin Scully, just because even though I grew up in Philadelphia, I was kind of young. They had a great one in Harry Callis. He died many years ago, but he was great for the Phillies. He actually was the voice of the NFL films for many years too. He's got a really distinctive voice, so I really like him. But I really like the Vin Scully was just the way he tells the game, and then getting to know kind of just what he's about. Just a great person. Right. That's the thing when people ask me about my favorite athletes and that, it's like, okay, I want to like you on the court or on the field, but what are you doing outside of the playing field too? Right. Because that makes it so much better for me.
Right. When you find out your hero is actually a great guy,
I know
it makes a big difference.
I know it really does, and that's what's the great thing about covering, like UCSB and Westmont sport. The athletes they attract are just superb,
incredible,
and they really are. Like Shane Bieber is going to win the American League Cy Young Award.
Right.
He is the greatest guy. The last 2 years, I've met him at Cottage Hospital, visiting all the kids in the hospital at the holidays. He does,
really?
He goes there on his own. The Indians didn't send him. UCSB didn't send him. He just one day called up and said, I'm a part of this community. In the off season, he lives here, works out in Summerlin, and he wanted to give back in the community. So he's the top pitcher in baseball right now. And he's like an MVP off the field. It's just like great stories like that.
Right.
It's just
that's going to be my next question is in your 25 years here, is there a coach or two that stands out, whether it be high school, college, in this community to you?
Well, I mean, I love John Moore.
Yeah.
I was sad to see him retire.
Right.
I mean, the round table, he goes to the round table and just is.
He's a hero at the round table.
Oh my God, he's just great. But he's great. I'd see him, around town at the restaurants, and he's always asking about my kids and all that. And the quotes he would give at the round table, he's just really just inspirational.
Yeah.
I mean, just amazing. You know who I really liked too was Mark French at UCSB,
Yep.
women's coach. He was just what he did for the community. I mean, he'd have his players in and out of the community, and just so again, I love that the coaches that win, but I just love the coaches that also give back to the community.
Right.
It's great to see, and most of the high school coaches are like that. Whatever sport it is, they're just great. Chucky Roth at San Marcos, water polo. I mean, every girl or young woman, he's also the Santa Barbara City College coach, women's polo. Not only does he win, but every female that I've talked to thinks of him as a father figure. I mean, it's just amazing the impact he has.
Wow.
I mean, why is water polo so good in this town? It's because of Chucky Roth and Mark Walsh and coaches like that, because they invest in the kids.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. And we in Orange County play the best water polo. But it's not just X's and O's with those guys.
Right.
They really care.
And it takes one person like that to make something like that happen.
I know.
That's an amazing thing about the coaching profession.
I know. And it's just amazing what they do. Chucky Roth, one more story about him too. And I barely see him. So that's the kind of impact he's made just watching him covering his team. He took non-athletes at San Marcos, and there's across the street at San Marcos, there's a gym. I think it's Killer Bees or something like that. I forget. He took non-athletes there who were struggling and with school, with physical fitness. He did a class with them. I did a story on it for a semester. All their grades went up. Their self-esteem went up. And it was just him investing in the youth. And it's just
so good.
And I don't want to get naming coaches, but there's so many coaches like that in this town.
That's so great. We need to have him on the program.
Chucky Roth.
Chucky Roth.
Yes.
What about if you look back over 25 years? Is there one or two or whatever athletes that stand out?
Wow, I mean,
that's probably a tougher one.
It's hard. I mean, I've gotten to know some really just incredible athletes that just there's Kyle Shotwell that played at Dos Pueblos, almost made it in the NFL. Actually, was on some 53-man rosters. Maybe some practice squads. But the Shotwells, they've had 4 kids play sports here, most of them at Cal Poly. Just great people in the community. Just Carrick DeHart played at UCSB. I lived across from him. He was just a great guy. He's done some incredible coaching, and he works at Channel Islands University now. I mean, there's just so many athletes that are just incredible. 2020 has been so hard, but when Kobe Bryant died, that was, I almost felt like a family member died. And he'd come here for camps.
I heard that.
And just it was great to interview him and and just see how he with the kids, and he was so involved in those camps, right? I mean, it's just like took a personal investment in that. I just loved seeing that and what he was going to do for the women's basketball game.
Oh man,
that hurts,
so
and I'm not even, the Lakers aren't even my favorite team. So
well, he's a Philly guy.
Yeah, exactly. He is a Philly guy. But it's just, I love seeing athletes that are doing that off the court too. Andre Agassi, I'm not even a huge tennis fan, right? I mean, I watched the Big Slam, but that he started a school in Vegas and an academy.
Right.
LeBron James doing that in Akron, Ohio. Just that's the kind of stuff that I like.
That's the meaningful
I was so excited when Andre Agassi opened his 24-hour fitness club in Santa Barbara. He has ownership in that. This was many years ago. He came to town. I got to interview him just because, I got to talk to him about his academy that he opened up for the youth. So
that's so good.
That's who I'm attracted to.
Yeah, as I was reading about you this morning, it's just refreshing to see a guy like you who's kind of been a steady presence in a community, who's on the TV set. It's a little bit like John Palminteri. I was thinking the same thing.
Well, way less, but
you don't have the mustache.
JP's primetime, right?
We need a name for you. What's your name? We'll call for the name. Yeah. But I mean, it is great. I think every community to kind of have you're kind of like the sports guy. John Palminteri is kind of like if there's a crisis or an emergency, you're going to turn your TV on and you're looking for John Palminteri. But you're the sports guy, which is a really great thing. And to have 25 years of steady, consistency is great.
Very fortunate.
Yeah.
Very fortunate. And I, honestly, I still love what I do. And that's what's great about it. Even, long days, I just look forward to going to work and seeing what's out there to cover. I love covering the games, and I love covering human interest stories. And, someone told me a long time ago, it's a privilege to put on this microphone and talk about what you're going to talk about every night. And I've always remembered that.
That's really good.
And there's a coach down south too, of what motivates me. And it's John Mack. And I was at his practice one day, and he told his kids, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And I've always tried to remember that. Like, don't try to mail stuff in. Just try to really push yourself to get better, even after 25 years.
Right.
It doesn't always work out that way, but that's what I strive to do.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for what you've done.
I appreciate you having me. This is great.
Thanks for saying hi to Delina.
I will.
A great family, and we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
All right. And we'll see you next time. This is Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. What is Good Life TV, you may ask? Well, let me tell you. Good Life TV exists to inspire, empower, educate, and encourage. Those are the things we want to do in a rough year that we're having. We want to encourage you. We want to inspire you. We're telling stories. They're real life stories. They're not all celebrities. They're people from all walks of life. And I think you're really going to be encouraged. There's a bunch of them at goodlifetelevision.org. So go there today, goodlifetelevision.org. Get encouraged. We love you. God bless you. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. Great program today. Jacob Allio is with me. He is the director of Santa Barbara Artworks, which is a program that helps people with special needs and challenges do art. It's a great program. He's a great guy. You're going to really enjoy it. Jacob Allio, The Good Life, is next. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you joined us today. You can always find us at goodlifetelevision.org. We're also on all the social media platforms. On goodlifetelevision.org, you can always watch the full interviews, and you can see some great moments from those interviews. We call them power clips. We'd love to have you visit us there. I'm really excited about my guest today, Jacob Allio, who's the director of Santa Barbara Artworks, which is a part of United Cerebral Palsy. He is the director of Santa Barbara Artworks, which is kind of the art-specific part of that organization here in Santa Barbara, and that part has been going for about 7 years or so. So, Jacob, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here with you, Dean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Jacob, by the way, just by way of introduction, has a BA in illustration and fine art from the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. So let me just start with you, kind of, before we get into kind of the work you're doing in the organization. But you love art.
Okay.
Tell us kind of how your love affair with art began.
Well, it's kind of something you start doing as a kid. I just started drawing when I was a little kid, and just kind of did it over the years, and just sort of something creatively you're doing. And then, it's kind of funny the way I got specifically into art. I was sort of just not really sure what else to do. And it was something I did as a hobby. So it seemed like something that would be, a fun major to take in college. So yeah, I went to Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and I studied illustration, but to be honest, I just couldn't keep up with the illustrators. They were just experts at what they were doing. And so I kind of switched to fine art. I just found that it was too intense to be an illustrator, and it's kind of a small field these days anyway. So I switched over to fine art, and wanted to create and sell my work, but wasn't always as practical. So started working at this organization through really, I just found it on Craigslist, and it was just something that seemed to fit for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your younger brother.
Uh-huh.
We have something in common, you and I. We have a
Mm.
daughter with cerebral palsy. She
Oh
actually had a
yeah.
stroke.
Wow.
She had a stroke in the womb, but
Mm.
they would classify her as cerebral palsy, and it is. She's 18 now. It's been an amazing, life-changing experience for us, for the vet.
Right.
But tell me about your kind of your road with your brother, your relationship with your brother, and how that has kind of impacted you to want to do the kind of work you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually, even connecting this with our first question about me getting into art, because they're sort of connected in a kind of a difficult way in some ways, but also, it's just interesting. God has a plan for your life, and you just never know what He's going to do.
Right.
And even before you kind of even know Him or realize it all kind of weaves together. But I was, my brother, he's my little brother, and he's 10 years younger than me. And so, my when you're a kid, you don't notice as much, I think, the difference. When I reflect now on how it's impacted my life, I think I definitely notice the difference more. But when you're kids, you just sort of, it's your brother, he has cerebral palsy, and it's just part of your life. But for me and my brother, my older brother, we were homeschooled, and so it was really difficult for my parents to homeschool us and have my brother with cerebral palsy. So I would say partly that's why by default I sort of got into art, because we just had a difficult time actually doing school. My mom had a hard time trying to take care of my brother and us. And I really, I didn't even really graduate and got my GED when I was 20, just on my own. And so I kind of felt undereducated, and I felt like, well, I can do art. So actually, really going back to our first question, that's kind of how I ended up there. And I never thought in my head, it's because my mom had a hard time with my brother, and thought about that at the time. But later I realized, how much, having a brother with cerebral palsy impacts the whole family. And, I'm so thankful for my brother. He's, made it something for me that being around people with disabilities is a normal thing. And also I see that for many, it's not. And so, people that have gotten to know me and my family and my brother have become good friends with him. And even since they were kids, I have some friends, and I find that it's helped them to kind of adjust to being around people with disabilities. Because I think a lot of people they're not weirded out by it or anything. It's more just, they don't know how to interact.
Right.
My brother, he can talk. Some people with cerebral palsy can't. You might think he can understand, but he understands everything. And so, I understand people approach him and sort of, they don't know what to say or what he's understanding. But I think it's having a brother with cerebral palsy is just, it's really impacted my life. And of course, in negative ways and positive ways, not to say I would trade it for anything. I love my brother. But it's just how it is. We live in a broken world, and it's a difficult thing. And there's a lot of beauty to it. Having a brother with cerebral palsy, but it can be hard for the family, especially. And I think it's one of those things that's really important for people to, come alongside families that have
Yes.
those with special needs, to really realize, how much it's needed to support them.
Yeah, totally agree.
So, yeah, so I would say, going back to how that brought me to this job, well, I had gone to art school, and then I had a brother with cerebral palsy. So outside of when I finished school, I was looking for work. And I just found this job that was teaching art to adults with developmental disabilities and running the gallery. And I was like, wow, this is great. So, I applied for it. I had never, it was sort of a director job too. So I just was like, well, I don't know if they'll hire me, but our director just really took a chance on me because I didn't have experience beyond art. And, she really took a chance on me. So I was really happy for that. And I've been with them for about 4 years, almost 4 years now. And, I think my brother helped me get this job without doing anything, just having him as my brother.
Right.
Which is great, so
Right.
yeah.
What's his name?
Noah. Yeah.
Noah.
Yeah, I'll actually show you. I thought you might be interested in this. I'll show you a painting I did of him.
Ah,
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. Kind of captures how, his joy.
Right.
So,
I love. Isn't that? Well, you understand. Isn't it amazing the joy? That's a. I'm just glad you used that word. There
yeah,
is such a, and I mean, it's not always the case, but I mean, it just, in my experience, the profound, pure joy that a lot of these special needs folks have is just magnetic, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And I'll tell you a funny thing, even relating to art. Um, I kind of go back and forth with art because I know it makes you, it can be happy at times, but the reality is it's kind of frustrating too. Just like anything else. I mean, yeah, it's fun. You can create, you share your creativity. God gave us the gift of creativity, and we share it with others. But at the same time, it's a challenge because you're always kind of like, oh, it's not good enough. I want to work on this. Oh, isn't that, but a lot of the people I work with, they draw something and they love it. And they don't have as much of that critique about it,
Right.
And that's part of the joy. They're like, yeah, it's great. And so I'm always
Right.
like, yeah, it's great. We love it, and
Right.
I'm glad you like it. And so it's great. And, and so I like it. And so part of it, it's like, even that I can tell that, there's a difference in working with artists, that have special needs. Not to say they're all this way, but the majority of them, they just really are kind of happy with any art they create.
Yeah.
They're not critiquing, comparing to the other person and saying, oh, this is better. And,
Right.
there's some constructive ways to do that, but still, I just enjoy that aspect of it
Right.
with them. Yeah.
That's a great point. There's a lot less comparison going on in that,
Yeah.
and they're not losing any sleep thinking about what you think about them.
No.
That's kind of what I've
That's
noticed.
true. That's
Kind of
very
nice
true.
thing. Yeah, it's wonderful. We can learn a lot from these. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
I have. I mean, it's amazing the perspective change.
Yeah.
I had a mentor one time. He had this famous quote. He always said it. He said, "If I could give you a gift, it would be perspective."
Mm-hmm.
Just because perspective can change everything. I mean, just a little tweak,
Mm-hmm.
and for special needs people, it just changes. I mean, they just have a different perspective. I mean, my daughter,
It's
I
true.
tell people, she's not mad about yesterday. She's not worried about tomorrow. She's always happy to see you. Every day's the best day she's ever lived. It's
Huh.
that's a different perspective. I don't do that in the morning.
Yeah.
I have coffee, but it's just different, and I just think there's so much we could take from them.
Yeah.
So tell us about with the actual work Santa Barbara Artworks does. Talk about the studio. I
Mm-hmm.
was on your website this morning. I was reading about it, but tell people who may not know what it is you guys do.
Yeah. So essentially, what we do is we have so UCP Work Inc. has about 60 or so participants in the day program. So we have a day program, and what a day program does is it allows for adults with developmental disabilities to come to our program, and they have a lot of choices of things they can do in the community. They can do cooking classes, art classes. They can just go out in the community and do stuff, and they have job coaches that help them do whatever they're going to do. So they're assigned to them to help them throughout the day. And so that may be just going and getting coffee, or it might be coming to the art studio. So the art studio specifically is set up, it's an art studio gallery, and it's set up for them to come, and we have 3 teachers teaching different days throughout the week. I teach a few days, and we teach. So we'll teach a little class, and there's like open studio time. So every day they're learning, and they have open time to create. We have art supplies for them to use. Everything they create essentially stays there unless they have an interest in keeping it, but it stays there, and we actually, frame it and hang it and put it in the gallery. And we actually help them sell it, and we have shows. And so they get a percentage of the profit, and then the rest goes back to the program. yeah, it's kind of helping them be, artists in the community and helping them to be more, integrated into the community through some of these shows. And they just have a good time creating, and they learn a lot. All of our teachers are, have degrees in art, and they teach, professional classes. And like I said, we have fun. It's not, real focused on how good, we just really want them to have fun, interact, and have a good time. So that's what we do. Yeah, essentially during normal times, of course.
I want to get to COVID in a second, but
Yeah.
can people buy the art of these special needs folks? And
Yeah.
how
So
can they do that?
So all the art is for sale, both in the gallery. Normally they could come in there and purchase it. Right now we're closed, but everything's online now. So they can purchase any of the art that the artists have created. They can purchase online at sbartworks.org. And we even have like prints available. They can get the originals, which they can pick up at the studio, or they can get prints on all kinds of things. So yeah, it's all available on the website right now.
sbartworks.org. Is that right?
Yeah, sbartworks.org. Yeah.
So how have you got, I was reading about your COVID response and kind of how you've adjusted. I was reading about adventures in quarantine. Tell us about adventures in quarantine.
Yeah, that was our first show we did virtually. We were trying to adjust to this new situation. So I just kind of came up with the title, I guess the idea for me was that, people were bored at home, and especially, specifically our participants in the program, they're really stuck at home right now. So, I was just thinking, through art, you can draw things, from all over the world, or whatever kind of things you'd like to be doing. And we can put them up on the website, and sort of people can go on an adventure while they're still at home. So that was the idea there, sort of.
That's great.
Yeah.
Love it. How you've been there almost 4 years, and so you've seen, I'm sure, a lot so far. How does art impact the lives of special needs people?
Mm-hmm. I think it's I think it's a really good creative outlet for them, because it's something that there's a lot of things that they're just not able to do, and that's different for each one. They're all different. We have some that are have cerebral palsy and they're in a wheelchair and they need care for everything. We have some that actually are mostly on their own and just have minimum care. So there's a big variety, but I think the art is something that we try to make available for all of them to be able to do, no matter how severe the disability physically or even mentally is. So we'll adjust it to them so they can do it. Maybe some of them have never done it. We'll create brushes that they can hold, and just find ways for them to create. So, I think it really helps them to have something to do throughout the day and have fun together, and just have a creative time and a community time, because they're all together, and that's really good, and I really think that's what I like to look at art. It's a fun thing, and it's a thing that can be done together, and it's fun when everybody's creative, in different ways. You learn to do art, but everybody's creative. And so it's fun to let them, be creative together. I always say, like, art has its place. I don't feel like it's what, saves them or, does everything for them, but it's a gift, that God's given us, and it's something fun for them to do together. And I'll tell you one story, actually, specifically about one of our artists. It's really interesting. He's in his 70s, and he draws people, places, and events from his life, from different times of his life. So if he met you, Dean, he would draw you with somebody he met 20 years ago doing something in a place he was in 30 years ago. And he'll do that constantly, and he doesn't just do it when he's with us. And that's how he kind of communicates with people. He'll draw 20, 30 of these in an hour, and he'll just come up and show you them all. And it's really interesting because he's got 70 years of, history of that. And you can't really have, you can have a pretty good conversation with him, but it's mostly difficult to have a conversation with him outside of him showing you those drawings. And so I think for him, it's really been a helpful thing because he's been through a lot and been in 70 years of having a disability. It didn't used to be as inviting. He was in some difficult situations, but for that, and we had a show for him last year. He had his own show. So his own show last December, actually, and it highlighted all of his art that he's created. We put it all over the walls, and it's not as much about the way some of it might look, but it's the way he communicates with it. So for him, it's like a visual communication device, and that's something he brought to it. So we didn't teach him that, but I think it's a way for them to have just another outlet, a fun community thing to do, to communicate with each other, have fun together. And I think they really enjoy it. Some of them that never created, we had them start creating, and now they love it,
That's great.
And it's not to say that, again, they may not do the best art, depending on, the person, but
Right.
they're having so much fun. So it's great.
That is great.
Yeah.
So sbrworks.org, I'm assuming people can donate to you. They can buy art from your resident artists. This is a fabulous program. And Jacob, I was reading a little bit about you this morning. I know you're a person of deep faith, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see it all over your smile.
That's great.
So we're going to get along. We've never met till this interview. Here we are on TV, but I can see it in your countenance, which is awesome. How did you talk about your faith journey just a little bit, if you would?
Yeah. So actually, I grew up, like I said, in a home where my parents went to church when I was a kid, a Christian family. But I think it really, we had some difficult situations. One was, I had another brother that was born and he only lived a few days. He had Down syndrome. He had issues with his heart, and he died after a couple of days. And then my brother was born with cerebral palsy about a year later. So, we were little kids. I was about 7. And a lot of difficult things in our family led us to where my parents weren't going to church, and, and just not reading the Bible, and nothing of God in their life. And so we grew up in a home where it was just, it was a good family and stuff, but we didn't have really the teachings of Christ, the teachings of the Bible in our life till I was much later. And my family just sort of walked away from everything. And then, I was in San Francisco, and, I had a life of just living. I was just kind of living for fun, living for experience, from 17 to 27, just living kind of in San Francisco and just with friends, doing the party thing and just being young and just, going to school and everything. But for me, it was about experience and friends and accomplishment. And those things I found to be empty. And through a series of things God did, just got sick once during finals. And I worked really hard to get to school, got loans after working a lot of years, and just, it was difficult, and just felt the weight of the world trying to get there. And it was my dream to get to San Francisco and to go to art school. And I did it. I made it there, but then I felt kind of really empty, and even more empty than even earlier times in my life when I was discouraged and trying to get there. And I didn't know why. I was like, why am I not happy? I have everything I kind of want. I'm going to college in San Francisco and art school as an artist. I made it. But I didn't, and I just started to see the world different. Whereas before, the world seemed, just everything I saw seemed to kind of just go along with what I kind of wanted. And it just felt like I had my place, and that was my purpose: do art, party, just live in the world. And then all of a sudden I felt like I was sort of observing it, and it wasn't feeling right anymore. And I didn't even feel comfortable just in the lifestyle I was living. And so I actually had some dreams of just, just dark dreams of, visions of hell and things like this, and really cried out to God. During this time, my mom had really started talking to me about Jesus again, and I was, sort of reluctant. All right, I'm a good person, just leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. I've made it to school. I'm doing good, and, I didn't understand what she was telling me. I think at the time I didn't have the understanding. And, a bunch of things happened. Long story short, things kind of fell apart in my life, and I actually had to leave San Francisco. Couldn't afford to keep going to school, and I had to come back down here, actually, to Ventura. And right at this time, my cousins wanted me to do an illustration of the throne of grace from the book of Revelation. He's a Christian, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. So I was like, okay, what is that? Where is it? And so I was like, yeah, I can do that. And it's throne of grace. And I'm like, this is really hard. God's throne, it's God's throne. Like, how does it look?
What is the throne?
And so I
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kept drawing it. And I started to feel like, okay, so if this throne of grace is real, if the Bible's true, then that means that, one day I'll go before this throne. And if it's real, which I didn't know totally, I was like, is it? What will I say to God? Like, how, what's important to God? And was it that I accomplished a bunch, went to college, and, did some good things, or, had a lot of fun? I just didn't know what was important to God. Like, I knew what I thought was important just based on my experience, but I didn't know what was important to God. So I just really started to think about that, and just really consider, what is important to God. So my mom had put an audio book on because I was staying at her house at the time, and it was this audio book she put on. It was a Christian audio book, and he was mainly speaking to Christians about living your life for Jesus, but I didn't really understand a lot of that yet because I didn't even know what that meant. But one thing he told me about was or that was on the audiobook was about a girl who she came to Jesus, and then she died at 14. And before she died, she shared a bunch of Bibles with her friends, but they kind of rejected her because they just weren't into that. And at the funeral, I think it was her pastor, someone shared the message of Jesus, the gospel, and all her friends came forward and got the Bibles and decided to follow Jesus. And so he just pointed out that was a life well lived. And I was like, that was a life well lived. She was 14. And it really impacted me, that story. And I had a lot of friends that didn't know Jesus. And at that moment, I realized, like, wow, I kind of feel like this is true. And if it is, I could be the one to tell them this. And, so God really worked in me. And I just started to consider more and more about that throne of grace and what it meant. And eventually just was really in a difficult place, kind of wrestling with myself and just, what is it all about? And I went to this Christian conference, which I had never really even been to church as an adult, but I went with my mom and my little brother. And actually, God used my little brother too in that situation, because we went and he had been, he'd come to know Jesus. He was about 14, and this is when he was about 17. So we went to this conference, and there was a time of worship, and there was songs playing, and I saw everybody, worshiping, and that was new for me too. I'd never really seen that since I was a kid, which you observe it different then. And my brother, who's in a wheelchair, who a lot of people can't understand when he speaks, he was just worshiping God and just singing out as loud as he could, and out of tune and just doing his thing. He didn't care. Right. And I was like, whoa, I'd never seen my brother do that. And I was like, really, it just impacted me. And so I just asked God, and I just really felt like God was speaking to me, showing me that my life kind of fell apart trying to go to school and finish, ending up back at my parents'. And I felt like I realized God did that he actually worked in my life to show me what was really important, which was knowing Jesus, which was, what he's done on the cross, dying for our sins and his resurrection. And so really, from that moment, I really felt different and felt like I completely saw the world different and just wanted to live for him. And that was about 12 years ago. And really have just lived for him since. And
that was 12 years ago?
Yeah, that was about 12 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, God changed my life completely.
Yeah, I was going to say your life probably is a lot better.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
Just really in the sense of, the joy,
Yeah.
there's still, and, all the same struggles as far as outward life that can come. And,
Right.
there's still like many challenges, and sometimes it seems harder in that sense, but when you have peace with God, you see it all different. So no matter what
Right.
struggles come, I know that he's going to give me peace. I've been through some really difficult things since then in my life, but he gives me strength each day. I read the Bible, and he just really, that's where I find my strength, isn't it?
Do you have the painting Throne of Grace? Did you paint it?
I drew it many times. I somewhere, but I actually was so just like, it was just so much to try to get it right that I drew it so many times, and then I just was like, I can't do this justice, Yeah, and it was such a yeah, it was such a different time in my life.
Have you ever heard of the preacher Ravi Zacharias?
Yeah, I've listened to him a lot. Yeah.
Okay, well he just passed away.
Yeah, I watched his
somebody,
funeral,
as you were talking about the Throne of Grace, somebody asked him, because Ravi Zacharias is kind of a big deal, and so people wanted to hear what he has to say. And they said, Ravi, when you get to the throne, in heaven, what are gonna be your first words to God? And he said, you know what? When I get to the throne in heaven, I'm gonna be a lot more interested in his first words to me.
Yeah.
Which I thought that's good. That's probably a good way of thinking. Well, this is great, man.
That's true too.
Well, I'm happy to meet you. Great work. I'm excited to hear about what you're doing, and hopefully people who are watching this who are in Santa Barbara can now know about you. And sbartworks.org is the website. If you want to go check it out, you can buy art from these great resident artists. And so it's great to meet you.
You too, Dean. I really, really appreciate the time. Yeah.
All right, thanks for coming on, Jacob Allio, Director of Santa Barbara Artworks. Appreciate you coming on the program, and we'll see you next time.